So in today's video, I'm going to show you an easy way to make a watercolor travel or map poster in Procreate. We'll paint the plain map first, and after that, I'll explain my trick that lets me quickly generate all these little details without even having to paint a thing. So this time, the watercolor effect is coming from the St. Petersburg Watercolor Texture. I'm also going to be using the brushes in the Alpine Forest kit, but I think all of the techniques that I discuss in this video are pretty universal and they could work for any brush or texture combination. So first, I'm going to use the fuzzy round brush and a couple of different shades of green to make an interesting background wash for the map. And after the main colors have been laid down, I'm going to switch to the Misty Water Blender and try to smooth this out a little bit, but also leave a lot of interesting texture behind. Now, after your background wash is all done, we need to cut it out into the shape of the map that we want to make, and that's really easy to do. And to do that, I'm going to go to Safari, and I'm on a website called Snazzy Maps, and I'll put a link to this exact website and a map style here in the description. All you have to do is just kind of pan around it. It's very similar to Google Maps. Find your location and then snap a screenshot. And for this location, I turned the iPad sideways to take the screenshot because it fit a little bit better. So I've already got that screenshot taken. And after that, I'm going to go back to Procreate and I'm going to go to the wrench and I'll do add a photo. And here's the screenshot I already took. And I want to scale this up so it covers my wash a little bit better. There we go. And sometimes you'll have some kind of residual stuff from the screenshot. And all you have to do to clear that is to just move it off of the edge of the artboard and then select it again. And that's usually all it takes to just kind of cut that off. Now this map style is just white and shades of gray, but in order to apply our wash to the map shape, I need to turn this into totally a black and white map. So to do that, I just want to make sure the map is actually selected. Then I can go to my curves adjustment. And I'm going to shift this bottom node way over here. And then the top node, I'm going to shift it over as well. There we go. So just this kind of arrangement. It's okay if it's a little bit different. It doesn't have to be exactly like this to work. If it looks black and white here, it's probably good enough. Next, I want to make sure the map is actually underneath the layer with our wash. Then I'm going to select the wash layer and change the transparency mode to screen. This will make it so it only shows up wherever the original map here is black. Where it's white, it won't show up at all. Now you can see in a few areas the black is showing through. So what I'm going to do is make sure the wash layer is selected, and I'm basically going to continue painting it just like I did before in the beginning of this video, but I'm going to make sure I cover those other areas. Now it's starting to look pretty good, but in my case, I think the colors are too uniform. It's going to depend on the kind of map you want to make, but I want to add some random color variation to this. So for that, I'm going to use the freehand selection tool and just make a random selection like this. Then I'll feather it out quite a bit, hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'm just going to mess with the hue, saturation, and brightness here and try to find an interesting kind of secondary color there. Now in a location like this that has lots of little kind of islands off the coast there, I like to add a variation to make them a different shade, kind of separate from the mainland here. So I'm going to circle this one for example, hue, saturation, and brightness, and I'll make it darker and shift the hue just so it stands off a little bit. And I'm going to go through and do that to all of the little islands. It's a really small thing, but I think adding that color variation makes it look much more natural. Now this next step is also optional, but I'm going to use the drips and splatters brush kit to add some interesting texture to this map. And to make those splatters so they don't show up in the white areas, I'm going to change the transparency of that layer to color burn. Then I can lower the opacity and set it to a point where they're just barely visible enough, but not too distracting. And to finish up the layout, I'm going to drop in my text arrangement down here. And I prefer to make my arrangements in Illustrator. I don't really like the font choices that Procreate has, so that's why I create a separate image like that. And in a minute here, I'll explain how I add all the little details and markers. But for now, this poster could be done, and here's what it would look like if I just stopped at this point. And that kind of layout is really good looking, but it's a little bit minimal, I think, and some of you might want to go the extra mile and kind of decorate your map with relevant elements from the area. So the way I see it, there are basically 3 options for creating all these things. The first one is you could paint them yourself, and this I think is the highest quality option, but the problem is you're going to be limited depending on your skill, and also even if you are a very skilled artist, it's going to affect your creativity because, for example, on a map, maybe you need some monkeys, but your kind of monkey painting skills aren't so great. So maybe for this map, you avoid adding monkeys, even though you know that's what it really needs. The second option is you could buy clip art and add it on. This is okay, but it does involve dealing with weird licenses and crediting other artists. And for me personally, that option doesn't work either because it adds too much complexity to this. Now the last option I think is perfect. It's perfect for me. What I do is I use an app called Simply Watercolor, and I don't know them, but they have a really cool app. And basically you can take a photograph, like a commercial-free photograph, apply a watercolor filter to it, drop it into Procreate, and then cut it out. And this app isn't perfect, and it does have a little bit of a learning curve because it's got a lot of options. But for me personally, it works really well, and it's a quick way to create these sort of complex watercolor elements. And if you want to learn how I make these elements step by step using that app, go ahead and check out this video up in the corner where I explain everything. And that pretty much wraps it up. Please, if you think I've earned it, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've put links and more details about the whole process here in the description below. As always, thank you so much for your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.